sponsored by the Degama Group.
Welcome to Rumbo Minero. My name is Jorge Leon Benavides. Together with Cesar Campos, we are going to develop the following program. How are you, Cesar? What a pleasure, Jorge, as always. Good. First of all, we wanted to make a few remarks. We agree with the statements made by the new Minister of Energy and Mines, Romulo Mucho, regarding what we have been talking about for several programs, which is that Peru is broke. Definitely, in order to have a solution to something, the first thing you have to do is to speak the truth, And obviously, before everyone's eyes, more and more money is being injected into something bankrupt. So you have to soak your beards, which you have done with your comments, the Minister of Energy and Mines.
Jorge emphasized that Peru's debt is 4 times the value of its equity in a week in which there has been talk of the sale of Peru's non-essential assets, which it has. And in some way, this debt with the state has to be covered, and above all, with many suppliers that are waiting on a long list.
And another important issue, just to finish with the issue of Minister Romulo Mucho, is that he is helping protecting the state, is that he is helping protecting. It is true that mining formalization does not have the figures we would like. There are very few. But we have to help those few. We have to make them an example of what mining formalization is. And that is the way Minister Romulo Mucho is going. And it is very important to help them to be a success story so that the rest understand the importance of formalizing and being within the law and the benefits that this has. We are going to have in this program a luxury guest, Victor Gobitz, President of the National Society of Mining, Petroleum and Energy, to talk about new heirs in the Minem and Antamina's expansion. We will also have a businessman, a mining businessman from Libertad Cesar.
That's right. This is Eduardo Rabines Yontop, is an outstanding miner who has even been recognized with the Medal of Freedom by the regional government of this town in Freedom, and also by the Earth Institute and the National University of Engineering. He has a very active presence, and we are going to talk to him about this declaration of emergency that has been given both in the La Libertad region and in Pataz, and precisely how to help mining formalization, a point that Jorge has picked up from the last statements of the new head of the Ministry of Energy and Mines, Romulo Mucho Mamani.
We will now hear the main mining news from Gabriel Aquino.
Thank you, Jorge. These are the main mining news of the week.
The Minister of Energy and Mines, Romulo Mucho Mamani, pointed out that there is a need to unblock the large mining projects that exist in our country because these are the ones that generate employment and resources for the state, which allows meeting the needs of the most needy population and closing social gaps. A total of $1,221 million were paid to the Peruvian state by the companies working in the hydrocarbon sector as royalties in the year 2023, the National Society of Mining, Oil and Energy indicated today. The Mining and Energy Association stated that the $1.2 billion represented a decrease of 33.7% in relation to the $8 billion paid by oil companies for royalties in the year 2022.
Well, we met with Victor Gobitz. He's president of the National Society of Mining, Petroleum and Energy. We are going to talk about, well, a little bit of everything, especially the issue of not only Antamina, but also the issue of the new minister, Romulo Mucho. Welcome, Victor, to Rumbo Minero.
Thank you very much. Good morning to Jorge and Cesar for the invitation.
Victor, in the introduction to the program, we made a couple of comments with Cesar about what we think is that Minister Mucho is taking the right steps, at least in his first statements, regarding the fact that if you want to improve something, the first thing you have to do is to look at the reality. And the reality is that Peru is broke. Isn't it? And number two, start working with those, even if they are few, with those who have been legalized with rainfall, and start helping them to be an example of what has to be done, and thus be able to spread the good sense to the rest. What are your opinions about this new stage of the Ministry of Energy and Mines?
Perhaps first I would like to comment and congratulate. I know Mr. Romulo very well. Mr. Romulo Mucho, colleague like me, mining engineer like me, I know good years, and I congratulate you for your professional and personal performance that has led you to become Minister of Energy and Mines. And of course, in the Peru issue, there is a difficult decision to make. Without a doubt, I believe he is taking the bull by the horns, as they say. And of course, what we see in the distance, I mean, looking back over the years, is that Peru, due to a lack of corporate governance, made decisions, investment decisions that had no financial justification and have led the company to the situation it is in now.
In that part, Victor, also the lack of transparency, because Artur Delito's report was already ready. It had to be revealed by the newspaper gestion, so that now Romulo Mucho says, no, we have to focus on rescuing everything that this study, this consulting firm has done, which effectively proves that Peru is bankrupt.
That is right. There has been a lack of transparency, and the lack of transparency has allowed it to make close decisions. And precisely because of that, that is precisely why good corporate governance requires two things: that there is no conflict of interest, that when you make decisions, there is no conflict in that decision. And secondly, transparency. And that is precisely what has been lacking in the state-owned company, and this must be corrected. There is no other solution.
Victor, at some point in time, the company asked, as all its associates do, for transparency. And more so being public, like any Peruvian, asked for transparency. And Peru's reaction was to leave the company.
Yes, it had a disagreement with society that is regrettable.
And that is regrettable, isn't it? Because for so many years, it is never like that.
Right, they never wanted to share the report that you mentioned, Cesar. And the reasons they gave were that there was commercial information that they could, the strategy, right? They didn't want to share it. But of course, the commercial chapter is a chapter of the whole document. They never wanted to share it, but of course, it's part of the story. They are no longer part of the mining society, unfortunately. But the other angle of your question was the issue of informal mining, illegal mining, right? Informal mining, illegal mining, right? You have to consider that if you look at the price from a distance, the big two products that mining has is copper and gold. And if one compares the year of the year against the year of the year, the price of gold went from 1,300 to 2,000. And the price of copper from 8,000, 8,500 did not have such a remarkable growth. Gold has risen 50% in that period, and that somehow explains this out-of-control growth of gold mining, illegal, and especially criminal mining, right? Yes, RENFO was a vehicle created to achieve formalization. It has been misused, and what we are advocating from the mining society is because there is backwardness. The full backwardness of this activity that has to do with the inputs it consumes, explosives, chemical inputs, fuels, purchase of equipment, and finally plants where gold is processed and finally sold. If we do not achieve full backwardness, it is unlikely that we will have clarity on the dimension of the problem.
But the main, excuse me for interrupting you, the main problem, they say, is that they have no rights over the territory. And there are two types, right? One is that it is government territory, that the government in a certain way would have to find a way to legalize them, right? And the other is that it is invaded territory. So that is a very important point for them.
Of course, we have to put it in context, don't we? When you carry out an informal activity, the most likely thing is that the technique you use does not meet the required environmental standards. First problem. Then, if I am the holder of a concession and someone wants to carry out an informal activity, this will cause a liability that the formal one will have to assume. So, this must be understood.
Those who rent.
And the second thing is the people. The people who carry out this activity, if they are not properly formalized, if there is no supervision, the most likely thing that is happening is that they are putting people at risk. How many accidents are not registered of people who enter these subway works? So, if we put people at the center and society as a whole at the center, which is not to have an impact on the environment, formalization requires a more comprehensive and complete view. It is not simply a matter of the formal one getting a permit to operate.
Stop re-info, from there to pass to Caesar, sorry. and back to propose something else.
Therefore, what we say is that we have to achieve full traceability. And this full traceability will require the work of the public sector and the private sector. SUNAT, the superintendents of banks and insurance companies, the suppliers of explosives, the suppliers of fuel, the suppliers of certain equipment used in this activity. If we do not manage to have a large integrated information center, we will not know the dimension of the problem. Indirectly, we believe that there are 400,000 to 500,000 people doing this activity, and they are producing more than 1 million ounces of gold. If I do not have that full dimension, discussing whether or not to expand the rainfall is not the basic solution.
Another important angle of what the new head of Energy and Mines, Engineer Romulo Mucho Victor, has stated is that regarding the revaluation of Tia Maria, but grouping the concept with the development of the Tambo Valley, which you have always mentioned, it is not agriculture, no, nor water, no, nor mining, yes. This nonsense that the middlemen always try to disturb above all the vision. I think that Engineer Mucho, Minister Mucho, has put it very well and has even added Conga, which we know that Newman has taken a lot of enthusiasm from it in recent years. But he has also mentioned it as a lever for development, obviously for Cajamarca. How do you see both announcements by Minister Mucho?
Yes, he has been a tremendous promoter of the concept of the brotherhood that exists between mining and agriculture. And clearly, something that he wanted to express in this way, as I understand it, is the concept of territorial development. That is to say, you cannot think about the development of a project without thinking about the environment in which it develops. And I believe that he has the communication skills, the relationship with the professional associations, the relationship with the young people through the academy to achieve, through academia, to be able to communicate this concept. The Tia Maria project would have a positive impact on the environment where it will be developed, and I believe that this will help to change the dynamics and the narrative that has played against us. Speaking of Conga, it is also an interesting topic to address. Conga is part of a mining district where there are other deposits, and based on the experience we have all seen in Las Bambas, what makes a lot of sense to rethink these projects is how to ensure that they have shared infrastructure. What do I mean? Surely we need to have a single transmission line, a single source of industrial water, and probably a single source of output with concentrates or a concentrator. And if we don't achieve that integrated shared of this mining district, it is unlikely that individually these projects will get financial approval.
Now, Victor, I hear in what you mentioned, you talk a lot about integral views, about joining efforts, don't you? You are more convinced that it is necessary to coordinate, are you not? In the case of the informal sector, there must also be explosives. They have to be, because if not, something is missing somewhere, isn't it? But who is what would be the authority, in this case, the government, to bring all this together? Because I want to go into this last part of the interview looking for solutions. What would be your call as president of the society? National Society of Mining, Petroleum and Energy, towards bringing this together, towards reaching conclusions. What are the steps you should take if it is the government that has to take the step?
Yes, I thank you for the question, and it allows me to go back to the new Minister of Energy and Mines. I think Romulo has the ability or the attributes, first, that he knows the sector from the inside, and I think he has to have the ability to integrate within the executive branch other sectors. The Ministry of the Interior is key. It is key. There is a criminality that has entered this activity. He has to involve the Ministry of Economy. Finally, the SUNOL responds to the Ministry of Economy. The supervision of banks and insurance responds to the Ministry of Economy. If he succeeds in getting it to articulate the concept to the Executive Interior, through his own union activity in the Institute of Mining Engineering, because of his knowledge of the industry, he will also be called upon to bring the private sector into this discussion. I believe that I do not want to put pressure on the new minister, but he has several attributes that can help him to be the great coordinator of this effort.
They say if you want something not to go out, create a committee, right? But would it be interesting for you to create a committee Is it a coordination of the government to have constant meetings and also to supervise in case any of them, for example, I am giving an example, explosives, are not selling in the right way?
Look, we have to consider that a Minister of State has a greater capacity to convene and a greater capacity to make decisions than any other commissioner. And I agree with you. It is not about creating something new, but I believe that a Minister of State, in this case of the Charter of Energy and Mines, could be the great coordinator of the executive branch and with the other commissioners. Within the executive branch and with the private sectors that have to participate. As I want to repeat this concept, full traceability is key to understand and solve the underlying problem. Our second concept that we consider is that formalization to date has been paper-based. Formalized by doing step 1, step 2, step 3. I think this is a partial view. The solution is to increase the productivity of this activity. It is an activity that is based on the high price I just mentioned a few minutes ago, but if one were to succeed, understanding the whole production chain to improve productivity with new technology or with better mechanization, integrating the national industry, which has a tremendous metal mechanic capacity, you would create a solution, a virtuous circle, where you incorporate this number of people into formality. You incorporate, you link with the national metal mechanic industry, and you take criminality out of this equation. I think this is a very relevant task if you also put it in a more national context. We have a very informal economy. More than 70% is informal. And if we manage to solve it in mining, it will be a good example for the whole country.
Excellent. Very well, Victor. As time is always short, we are not talking about Antamina, but if you can talk to us in 20 seconds about Antamina's expansion, I would be happy to talk to you about it.
Yes, of course, in 2 minutes only or 1 second. Tell you that it is a life extension in the same operational footprint. It is a process that has taken 4 years, 4 months, and that has had 3 processes of citizen participation. 5 different state entities have been involved, looking at the project from different angles. SENACE has undoubtedly been the main one. The second has been the National Water Authority, but SERPAR has also participated, SERFOR has participated, and the Ministry of Culture has participated. It has been a long process, even though it is in the same operational footprint, and we are very satisfied with what we have accomplished. The investment
How much
to extend the road from the year 1028 to 2036 is in the order of $2 billion.
$2 billion. Thank you very much, Victor. As always, very clear in your arguments on how to change a little bit the ills that mining suffers. And besides, they are of many years. So thank you very much. We hope to have you back another time.
We thank you for the invitation.
Well, Victor Gobitz, President of the National Mining Society, was with us. Now we are going to listen to Gabriela Chicoma with Expomina. Go ahead, Gabriela.
Thank you very much. Expomina Peru, the largest and most important mining meeting in Peru in 2024, with 16 years of experience, do business with the mining sector of Peru and America. Expomina Peru from September 11th to 13th, 2024 at the Jockey Lima Exhibition Center. Portfolio of mining projects in Peru for more than $53 million. And portfolio of mining projects in America for $450 million. Invest with the leaders. Participate in Expomina Peru 2024. For more information, check our website www.expominaperu.com.
Well, next, our America Mining blog. We connect directly with José Gonzáles, the international editor of Rumbo Minero magazine. We connect to New York, to Wall Street. How are you, José?
Very well, Jorge. Nice to be with you every week.
Tell us a little bit, Jose, in the oil outlook for 2024, you said that the acquisitions of Occidental Petroleum, ExxonMobil, and Chevron in 2023 indicated that the consolidation of conventional producers with shale producers would confirm a period of stability in crude oil prices, in addition to the search for economies of scale. This week, another Diamond Black Energy acquisition was announced, acquiring Endeavor, Blackback Energy, adquiriendo Endeavor Energy Resource. What is happening in the Permian Basin? What is going on in the U.S. Permian Basin, where acquisitions seem to go on and on, not stopping? Also, Jose, at a time when we are talking about copper and electromobility, and we see strong moves in the U.S. with respect to oil, tell us a little bit about it.
That is correct, Jorge. The merger of Diamondback and Endeavor will create a $50 billion company and confirms precisely a consolidation in the energy sector linked to oil. Endeavor, according to the Wall Street Journal, is one of the most prized producers in the Permian Basin, which is the largest producer of shale oil, the world's fracking, located between the borders of Texas and New Mexico. The extinction leaves out ConocoPhillips, which dominates production in the Permian and could produce, combining both companies, 400 barrels of oil per day. However, the transaction in the basin begins to underline the phenomenon that oil analysts have been pointing out for several months now: the drop in the productivity of oil wells in the Permian and the possibility that it has already reached the peak of its potential production. According to the journal, oil production in the United States is expected to increase to only 170 barrels this year, after increasing by 1 million barrels last year, which could be the smallest increase since the year 2016. The United States is currently the largest oil producer on the planet, with 13 million barrels per day compared to 11 million in Saudi Arabia and 6 million in Russia, whose increases in production at current levels have allowed keeping crude oil prices under control in spite of the Lopez Plus cuts and the invasion in Ukraine and the war in Gaza. In the case of the Permian, which produces 6 million barrels of crude oil per day, the production has been increased since the year 2014. It is not only the depletion of existing reserves that could be exhausted in a decade, but also the absence of technological innovation in the processes of invoices, hydraulic fracturing of rock that allows the production of oil shale if the Permian production is exhausted, which could not compensate the basins and the Forum in Texas and the Cow in North Dakota. Brent quotations could go, says Morgan Stanley, from a range of a current $75–80 per barrel to $80 to $85 per barrel. As you point out, Jorge, the energy transition is already well underway, but it is going to take time. Hence, as we mentioned last week, there is a discouragement with electric vehicles, and there is a conclusion that before consuming less oil, we are going to consume more oil. This explains in some way the attempt of the United States and Europe to normalize the relationship with Venezuela and the interest in Argentina in Vaca Muerta, which is one of the sources of the largest reserves of shale oil in Neuquén in Patagonia.
Very interesting, Jose, because we can also continue talking in the oil field about this news which has had an impact this week. Berkshire Hathaway, which is a company headed by the famous Warren Buffett, has sold its shares in Apple, a communications technology company, to buy Chevron and buy shares in Occidental Petroleum, which in Buffett's condition of oracle could be considered a very significant bet in the hydrocarbons field. How is this issue being viewed?
That's right, Cesar. Surprising news came from Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett's Houghton Company, as you point out, which is the most reputable investor in the world, has just reduced its position in Apple, perhaps the most prized in its portfolio, to $176 billion. That is $41 billion more in excess of the Peruvian GDP. The reduction in the position was disclosed by the company in its report to the SEC, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. In its report for the close of the year 2023, the sale represents 1% of what it had in Apple, or $29 billion, which now owns 5.9% of the company's shares, being the third largest shareholder in Apple and more than half of the portfolio. His position in Apple is more than half of the Berkshire portfolio, which is $300 billion. Oracle Fanatics have analyzed Berkshire's position reports to determine the rationale for the sale and the fate involved in diversifying it. They have already discovered that the proceeds from the sale have been invested, as you point out, in the energy sector. In the last quarter of the year, Berkshire increased its position in Chevron by 18% to a total amount of $18 billion, and Occidental Petroleum by almost 9% to $146 billion. As we were saying with Jorge, it is good news for the oil companies, but perhaps bad news for consumers, as they said in Game of Thrones Winter's Coming, to get ready for increases in crude oil prices.
Jose, thank you very much. Congratulations for the work of the entire Digama team, led by Fanny here in Peru and by you internationally with respect to the editorial part of Rumbo Minero. With this, I would like to present to all of you the latest edition, a compendium of mining projects and expansions in Peru and America, edition 2024. You can go to www.rumbominero.com and you can access the entire compendium of mining projects and expansions, not only in Peru, but now in the Americas. Of course, always with the support of America Mining of José Gonzáles. Thank you very much, José.
A pleasure. I have always loved it. Well, Cesar?
Yes, Jorge, time to announce the AMSAC Mining Assets block.
AMSAC Mining Assets is a Peruvian public company with a great purpose: to give life back to the planet. Thus, we are dedicated to contributing to the sustainable development of the country through mining environmental remediation. In AMSAC, we recover the areas affected by high and very high-risk mining liabilities that are in a situation of abandonment or in which the state has not identified those responsible. In this line of work, we are currently present in 11 regions of Peru, with a portfolio of 65 remediation projects, which are located in different phases. The promotion of private investment in AMSAC, we represent the Peruvian state as counterpart of the transfer contracts of important mining projects, and we also supervise the fulfillment of the commitments and obligations that are part of such processes. Today we are leaders in business management systems. Among the 35 companies of the FONAFE Corporation, we have ISO 9001 certifications in quality management, ISO 14001 in environmental management, ISO 37001 in anti-bribery management, and ISO 45001 in environmental management. ISO 45001 in FONAFE Corporation management helps us to guarantee health and safety at work at AMSAC. Sustainability and care for the planet are our DNA, and therefore, we are proud to contribute to creating a better world through the recovery of air, water, soil, and ecosystems impacted by mining liabilities, and thus contribute to 10 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the year 2030. Giving life back to the planet is more than a simple phrase for us. It is the guide of our daily actions, with which we have a positive impact on the lives of thousands of Peruvians and through them on our country.
We now meet Eduardo Rabines, a mining entrepreneur in the Libertad Region. We are going to talk about the fight against illegal mining in Pataz. We have already seen what has happened in Pataz, which is regrettable. And we have also seen the situation in Pataz. He is going to tell us a little bit more about what is going on. Welcoming Eduardo Rabines, I would like to ask him, as a mining businessman who has been working for many years in the La Libertad region and who has experienced firsthand what is happening in this region due to illegal mining, especially in Pataz. Can you tell us a little about your experience of what is happening in the region?
More than my experience, I would say that to know the present problem, you have to know the past. Because if we don't know the past, what else am I here for? So it's like going to the doctor and telling the doctor, hey, I have a headache. And the doctor tells me, let's see your nails. So I'm going off the deep end. So Peruvian mining has a very old legal history. We go back to the beginning of the 20th century with this president whose last name was Romaña, who made the first mining code. And from there, it went jumping for many years, 50 years the first time. Then it went on for a while until Odría, from there a little more with Belaunde, who made the general mining law. Then we came to the unmentionable general who governed us in the year of mining, which was a communist government. But nevertheless, being communist, it was in some aspects already perhaps with moral Bermudes. The thing was more rational because something very interesting was done. There was the mining bank, there was the Ministry of Energy and Mines, and there was MINPECO. Then the mining bank was the one that gave the money so that mining could be done. And in coordination with the Ministry of Energy and Mines, according to the possibilities of each miner, they were given the economic facilities, and the zonal plants were built. Plants were built. And Peru, throughout the length and breadth of the country, was filled with plants. There were concentrator plants everywhere.
We want to concentrate, Eduardo, on the La Libertad situation, as Jorge asked you, in the interest of time.
And that's just where I'm going, right? That's where I'm going. Otherwise, it will not be understood. What I try to do is a little bit of teaching so that people understand. Otherwise, they will not understand anything. So the state left the area empty, free. All that investment made in the Andes disappeared, didn't it? And by leaving something, if you leave a piece of land free, a house free, it is very possible that others will invade it. Who is to blame for this current situation? It is the Peruvian state, it is the guilty party.
And now it is being asked, interesting what counts, because now the government is being asked to put refineries, isn't it, everywhere. But there was already a precedent, wasn't there, where things had worked that way? And that was lost.
But as I repeat, there has already been a mining history, right? It has been destroyed. And the truth is that there are some very, very interesting phenomena, and that I have learned because I have had to learn this mining change in those 10, 12 years I have had to learn about this mining change in those 10, 12 years that the environment has been damaged because all those artisanal miners began to pollute with cyanide. So their ignorance, their lack of support, their neglect, because they are Peruvians of the 5th category, because there are some of them who do not even have a DNI. I go all over the mountain range, in the highlands, in the north, and there are people who do not even have a DNI.
We want, Eduardo, that we have discussed all this many times here in this program, Rumbo Mineros. You will understand that we have practically, I am getting to the point. The point is, for example, I ask you, since the installation of REINFOS, the registry for this informal mining that is done in the government of Yantumala, and that is about to expire due to the determinations that have been made, and that has caused what we had asked you about initially, the situation of legs and the declaration of emergency in the region of La Libertad.
I will tell you a very important fact that almost nobody has noticed. During those 12 years of that mining, informal mining and after formalization took place with Toledo and progress began to be made in the law, there were many formal miners that instead of cyanide mining in the highlands, began to take their minerals to take care of to protect the environment, to many plants that were created on the coast. Normally the plants were close to the mine before, now they are not. With this phenomenon, the formal miners were allowed to transport their ore to these plants, and they no longer polluted the environment. And those plants that now exist everywhere on the Peruvian coast are a palliative against pollution, are a palliative against environmental contamination, because cyanidation is no longer used. These plants buy the mineral and transform it. So that is the positive part, I would say. Besides, more jobs have been generated. How can all this be solved? There is a money problem here. And this money problem, how do we solve it? How do we accommodate all these Peruvians who are in the Andes Mountains trying to earn a living to support their wives and children, and they are in the informal sector. How? Well, there are formal and informal processes.
But they are in informality. How would that be?
The state has to support them, but in the meantime, what does the Peruvian state need? Money, income? How do you capture your money and income? To all those gentlemen, without differences, They present their mineral sale procedure and they go and pay a retention to any bank. A withholding of 5%, 8%, and that is money that goes to the Peruvian government so that they can build hospitals, bridges, good roads. And that is fixed in 24 hours.
There are two last important announcements that Jorge Leon Benavides referred to at the beginning of the program, Eduardo, and it refers to statements made by the new Minister of Energy and Mines, Romulo Mucho Mamani. He has said that on the issue of formalization, it is necessary to study very well what has been the fast and quick process with which some informal miners have achieved that longed-for formalization. But he also refers that there are close to 500,000 workers linked to informal mining and close to 1 million people in total involved, and he has insisted that he is going to study this problem. What would you expect from this study? Perhaps some flexibility to allow those people who are really in the process of formalization to achieve it?
Not only those who are in the process of informalization, but there are many people of little culture, of modest education who are in the hills and do not even know how to get to a state office. So the state cannot just sit back and say, no, let the private sector do it. No, the state has to go out into the field. It has to go out there.
It has to go out there, right?
It has to go out into the field. That's right.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, Mr. Eduardo Rabines, we have run out of time. We are going to invite you back because you have a lot of information to give us. And I thank you, before I finish, I thank you for telling us the history of mining, how it has evolved, because it is important to understand where things come from. Is it not? Very short, please.
And I am very happy that at last in the Ministry of Energy and Mines there is a qualified professional. We are in agreement. I am really, I just think that they are starting to use their brains in the state and they are putting qualified people, people from the field, well, who know? And there is another man in economics, I don't know his name, because I have even forgotten the names of those who govern me because I do not feel governed.
Thank you very much for being here. Stay there for a while. We are going to listen now to Gabriela Chicoma with Expomina. Go ahead, Gabriela.
Thank you very much. Expomina Peru, the largest and most important mining event of the year 2024, with 16 years of trajectory, with the special participation of the United States as the guest mining country. Expomina Peru is the only Peruvian event certified by the United States Department of Commerce. Do not be left out and be part of this great mining event. Reserve your booth at Expomina Peru. For more information, visit our website www.expominaperu.com.
Next, let's take a look at the suppliers block.
In Rumbo Minero TV, we are now showing the suppliers block of the mining sector.
Well, in our suppliers block, we now meet Mr. Carlos Alva. He is the General Manager Director of Absisa, a very important supplier. Don Carlos, welcome to Rumbo Minero.
Good morning, Jorge. Good morning, Cesar. Thank you for the opportunity.
Tell us a little bit, how many years have you been working in the mining sector and what is the portfolio of service products that your company provides?
Well, as Absisa, we have been in business for 37 years. Since 1987, we have been serving different mining companies such as Yanacococha, Antamina, Southern, Chinalco, and our portfolio of products are mainly the subject of valves and automation. We are focused on fluid control, and we have representations, brands such as Apollo, Parker, Armstrong from the United States and Germany, Lesse, Protego, and Rembe, among others.
What are your objectives and business plans for the current year 2024, and especially in terms of innovation and the presentation of products and services that we have to offer to our customers?
Well, our main objectives are very well defined. The main objective is the satisfaction of our customers. For that, we provide the best specialized technical service with our technicians and our highly trained personnel, both in the factory and in the visits that the factory representatives make to us. And from that, we can pass on all our knowledge and expertise to our customers. In addition, with the certifications we have acquired this year, we already have the whole group certified with the Trinorm. We made 9,000, we made 14,000, we made 45,000. In addition, we have obtained the certification of the National Institute of Quality in the calibration of safety valves, the 17025, and we are about to continue with the certification for natural gas vehicles in Parca hoses with Inacal. We also have certifications from the German factory Lese and Protego. That is a goal of satisfying our customers, transmitting the quality of our service. Secondly, we have to empower our human resources to give them a better work environment, improve them, train them so that they can serve our customers in a fast, agile, and efficient way and provide them with the best service. And thirdly, we translate this precisely into the development of the digital transformation that we are implementing in our company with the support of specialized companies, and that way we can serve you with specialized software in a more effective way and with more accurate calculations.
Okay, to finish briefly, tell us a little bit, we know that you have a very important after-sales and customer follow-up. Tell us a little bit about...
Well, mainly our service is that we are on a daily basis visiting customers, answering phone calls to be able to attend their requirements that may arise from technical queries that arise in the products, both in the implementation, installation, maintenance, repair. We provide after-sales services because we have specialized workshops and specialized teams with factory-certified technicians to provide calibration. And at this moment, for example, we have services in La Pampilla refinery, inspecting steam traps or condensate traps of about 6,000 units. We have maintenance in plant shutdowns, in gathered techniques. We do services in different industries and mainly in mining, attending on site the requirements of the maintenance and after-sales service with webinars, talks, training, technical information. Okay, that.
Well, it was Carlos Alva, General Manager, Director of Absisa. Congratulations on your management, Mr. Carlos, and we hope to have you here on another occasion to talk a little more about the work you have been doing as important suppliers to the mining sector.
Very friendly.
Well, coming to the end of the program, Victor Gobitz, Cesar, talked to us about unifying efforts of being all together. And it is true, in Peru, sometimes one goes this way, and that also has to do with permitting. One over here, another over there, the Ministry of the Environment, the Ministry of Energy and Mines, ANA, all on their own side and making the mining company bounce from one side to the other to be able to get, or an investor to be able to get his project off the ground.
Informality, you mean?
The same in this issue, informality, we have to join efforts. And of course, if you want something not to come out, make a committee. That is, he definitely says no to the committee. No, not necessarily no. But the Minister, Romulo Mucho, has to lead it and sit down the people and the companies that have to do with this, and some that do not have to sell what they are selling all of a sudden.
Victor Gobitz talked about traceability, and something that also, in a way, our second guest, Eduardo Rabines Lontop, who is a distinguished mining entrepreneur from La Libertad, I reiterate, has been awarded by the regional government, recognized by the National Engineering University. He's very happy that Romulo Mucho is also in charge of the Ministry of Energy and Mines, because it guarantees him the possibility to dialogue and also to see the social problem that the interrupted formalization process still entails, which has to be completed in some way. But as Gobitz said, to make a traceability to allow those who are still pending to achieve the longed-for formalization.
Okay, well, thank you very much for being with us. My name is Jorge Leon Benavides, and together with Cesar Campos, we have carried out the program Rumbo Minero. Next, don't forget, comes the Peru Construye program. Thank you very much.